Hello everyone, I'm Aaron, a birding naturalist. Welcome back to another video. I am here at a local farm near my house, Killdeer Farms. Let's talk about bird boxes. Adding a nest box, like this one, can be a great way of bringing a really important resource to a farm, like the place I am now, or pastures, fields, nature areas, even sometimes suburban areas. That important resource is a cavity, a hole, an enclosed place for birds to nest. Some birds specialize, in fact, even require cavities to nest in. And a cavity is just a opening, a hole in a tree, originally branch, something like that, maybe broke off or rotted away and left this hole. A cavity is what woodpeckers create when they drill into a tree and create an opening inside the wood. Woodpeckers usually use a cavity once and then leave and go establish another one. And that left behind cavity, and in fact, that series of left behind cavities over the years, provides really important resources that many other birds then use. Bluebirds use them, many swallows use them, titmice use them, wrens use them. There are a whole bunch of different cavity nesting birds that rely on these open holes that get abandoned. I've been discovered. We should move. So by adding nest boxes, you're increasing the number of potential nest sites for all these birds, which is fantastic. You can imagine that relying on just the number of abandoned woodpecker nests means that cavities are kind of a high commodity, high competition resource. And sure enough, there are lots of birds that want to use these, and the competition is in fact fierce. So by adding more boxes, more cavities to an area, you're greatly increasing the sort of reproductive potential of that area, which is fantastic. A lot of birds that need cavities to nest in are also facing some pretty stiff competition from invasive species. So things like European starlings and the house sparrow, both passerines, songbirds, they were introduced to North America from Europe. Both use cavities, and both are sort of larger and more aggressive than many of our native species, and so tend to outcompete them for this limited high commodity resource. So adding more nest boxes really helps in a lot of ways. But putting up a nest box brings certain responsibilities. Normally, a sort of in the natural setting, if you will, a tree trunk with a hole drilled into it by a woodpecker, pretty well insulated. It stays cool pretty much all the time. A nest box like this, it's exposed to the elements a lot more, walls are a lot thinner, and so that raises some challenges. And especially if you're in a place like where I am right now, in the Central Valley of California, it can get quite hot in the summertime. And so steps should be taken. There are things you can do, which is great. One is to plant them in the shade. The nest boxes here on Killdeer Farms are a great example of this. Most of them are either in the shade or they're near trees that have been planted and they're going to grow up and provide shade. So that's fantastic. A great way of helping these boxes stay cool. Another thing that people could do is paint the sides of the boxes white. Some light color tends to reflect heat as opposed to darker colors, which absorb heat. And so by painting a box white, that keeps them nice and cool. Another thing that these boxes, in fact, most bird boxes have are ventilation shafts, ventilation openings, ventilation slots, holes, something like that. These are gaps, usually near the top of the box, that allow for air movement through the box. And that's a great way of reducing the temperature inside, because that air inside just heats up and heats up. But when it reaches those holes, a breeze can come through, or just the hot air itself can push out and relieve some of the heat temperature stress on the birds inside. There are other things you can do as well. For example, putting a false roof or even a reflective panel on top of a box can again help reduce or reflect a lot of that radiant heat, or at least allow a gap where on a false roof, it's like a second roof basically, where the top roof gets hit by all that sun and gets hot. But then there's a gap of air, and it kind of provides some shade and protection to the actual roof of the box, preventing it from getting too hot. So false roofs can be another great technique if you have a bunch of boxes and if you're noticing that heat is becoming an issue. And heat definitely can be an issue. There's been a fair bit of research done on bird boxes and success rates in bird boxes and comparing the internal conditions to the external conditions of a bird box. And so we know a fair bit, luckily. One impressive feature is that depending on the design of the box, it can easily be 6 or more degrees Fahrenheit hotter inside the box as compared to outside the box. And if temperatures get above about 107, that's about the lethal level for most songbirds that nest in boxes. And so when things are hot outside and you add 6+ degrees inside, it's really quite feasible in many of these like very hot summer days, if you live in a hot area, to reach that sort of lethal threshold of 107. And in fact, when you get to that level, or even close to that level, studies have shown that it can impact nest rates by as much as 50%. So you can result in 50% mortality, sometimes even higher, of a population nesting in boxes under those conditions. So it really makes a big community population level impact if there are a lot of boxes that are all too hot. So going the extra step and keeping nest boxes cool makes that much bigger of a difference. So there's a little bit about boxes and their care and maintenance, and some ideas on how to make bird boxes even more successful than they are. I really want to thank Killdeer Farms for letting me come and visit their property and hang out here this morning. It's always wonderful to be here. They're amazing stewards of the land, planting native plants and installing boxes for native birds. Great group. Thank you very much for the view. Subscribe to the channel. And until next time, enjoy the natural world.